What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a banger of a video, a true hoot and a holler. This is a great way to wrap up our 2022. Before we dive into this video, I just want to say real quick that I want to thank you guys for an absolutely amazing year. It has been a super good year for the channel. We've got a ton of new viewers, a lot of new videos out, and it's just been awesome. I've done a lot of dope stuff this year, and it's all thanks to you guys. So hope you guys had a great year, and here's a little cheers to 2023. Let's take a shot. You know what? Let me bust open the bottle and just take a swig. Cheers, everybody. Oh God. Jägermeister straight out of the bottle, and it's room temp. That was brutal. Oh. Okay, hey, either way, thank you guys for supporting the channel. I appreciate you guys a lot, and without further ado, let's dive right into the video. In today's video, we're talking about the time that I took a very large dab of some absolutely awful quality concentrate, and it destroyed me. Now, this happened somewhat recently. This happened a couple years ago, actually almost 3 years ago. Time flies, dude, wow. But this was right after I had just moved into my new house. You see, I had recently signed a new lease and moved into a new place that was different from the house that was in my Trap House Tales series, which some of you OG viewers might remember. I had just moved into this new place, and I had pretty much nothing in the house yet, and I was bored. And every now and then, as some of you guys may know, back in these times in my life, I would hop on to dating apps, and I would see what was cracking. On this fateful day, I had been using a new dating app. Typically, I was a Tinder dude, but we had hopped on Bumble. You know, we had had enough of Tinder. It was time for a change. So I hopped on Bumble, and, you know, I made my little profile, and I was just browsing around. And listen, all right? On my dating app profiles, I never tell people that I'm a YouTuber. Never in my life. I don't list it anywhere on my profile. However, it depends. There are circumstances where I will list it, all right? If I'm swiping and there's a girl who I can tell is well out of my league and I have to pull all the stops, then we're definitely putting something about my YouTube on my profile, okay? And hoping that she sees that and swipes back. But if we're batting in the minor leagues here, okay, like I normally am, we're just chilling out doing our thing, I'm telling these girls I'm an accountant or some shit, bro. I'm not telling them I do YouTube because I don't know, dude. There's a weird like stigma around doing YouTube for a living and YouTubers, especially with girls. I found that whenever I tell a girl that I do this for a living, they have a lot of questions about it, and then they go and find my channel and they realize that I'm a degenerate crackhead, and that's not really the image that I'm trying to give off. So I just straight up would lie most of the time. And at this point, I had matched with a girl a couple days prior to this particular day, and we had been chatting a little bit back and forth, and hey, the way this app works, Bumble was a little different, bro. You know, like they had to hit my line first. So I'm just sitting there, I'm like, hey man, someone's gonna bang my line. And sure enough, this girl did. Now for the rest of this video, we're gonna refer to the girl that I matched with as Tina. I don't know why, I just think that's a good name. I feel like we haven't used that before. So we're gonna roll with Tina. Now, Tina and I had been talking for a couple days, you know, just getting to know each other, not really anything serious. We had barely even really been flirting, you know, it was mainly just to get to know each other, but we had been talking for a couple days, and finally we had talked about actually hanging out and smoking together. I mentioned to her, I was like, yeah, you know, like I just moved into my new place, you know, like you should come through and we could smoke a little bit. Normally, I'm not a big fan of inviting strangers over to my house. However, at this point in my life, I had absolutely nothing to lose. I did not have any personal belongings to my name outside of my PlayStation and the small amount of drugs that I had. So I wasn't really worried about getting robbed because I didn't have very much, okay? I'm pretty sure that my PlayStation was worth more than my car. So really, I mean, I would have been a low quality lick. So we're talking, I say to her, I'm like, yeah, you know, like just let me know if you want to come over, we could smoke a little bit. Now, I had a little bit of weed on me already, so I was chilling, you know, I was feeling good. I had my mid, I had a match on Bumble, life is good, you know? So she tells me, she's like, oh yeah, you know, like I'm probably going to be free later, I'll hit you up. So I'm chilling, I go about the rest of my day, and finally a little later in the day, around like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, Tina hits me back up, and she's like, yo, what you doing right now? So I tell her, I'm like, oh, like, not shit. Like, what do you want? And she's like, hey, I'm with my friend. She's with like another dude. Can we come through and smoke? Or like, do you wanna like link up with us? So I told her, I was like, yeah, like come through, go for it. Now, I was looking forward to this, okay? I was new to the area, I didn't have any friends, and I was having difficulty finding new friends in the area. A lot of the people that I had met thus far at this point were very different than me, people that were not like the homies that I was used to up north. I think it's because I moved so far south, different culture kind of thing, but oh my god, 90% of the people I ran into were like Trailer Park Boys side characters. So either way, I tell Tina to come through with her friends, and lo and behold, maybe 30 minutes later, they pull up to my house. Now, she pulled up with another girl and then a guy that was with that other girl. So I'm like, yo, okay, it's a little double date scenario. I see what's going on here. At least that was my first impression of it. I wish it ended up going that way. That's not how it went. So either way, she pulls up and her homie's there, and, I dap this dude up. I say hi to the other girl. I introduce myself, and all is well. Now, this girl, she looked like the pictures, she was pretty good looking, so I was like, okay, cool. I don't know if I fucking look like the pictures, but hey, that's not my problem, that's hers. So we all sit down in my living room, and I use living room as like the loosest of terms to describe this room. There was a couch and a table. That's it, I had no furniture in this place. I had been living in this house for, I would say, about like maybe 3 weeks at this point, so I had fuck all in here, dude. I mean, there was nothing. There was no decor on the walls. There was no, like, second seat. Everything I had was the stuff that my landlord had just left in the house, I had nothing personal. So they all sit down in my barren wasteland of a living room, and we're chilling out and chatting a little bit, and, I'm talking to Tina, and things were a little awkward, like, from the get-go. I kept trying to make conversation, but, after the first couple attempts of asking her something, she was giving me, like, kind of like weird answers that I couldn't really respond to, or like, I don't know, maybe I just like, maybe we just weren't feeling each other. I don't know. But right off the bat, the vibe was not there. But you know what? We were getting stoned, and she had told me on the way over that her friends had brought weed to match. She was like, oh yeah, we could smoke, they could bring some weed to match. So I was not concerned. As long as we were getting stoned, mission accomplished, So I'm chilling out, and I asked the other dude, who I don't think we're going to give a name to. Actually, no. For the sake of the story, we should give him a name. Let's call him Ronald, bro. I don't know. I feel like Ronald's a name we're never going to use again, and this is a very disposable guy who I never met after this day, thankfully. So we're just going to call him Ronald. So I asked Ronald, I'm like, yo, like, what you got to smoke? Because I assumed that he was the one that brought the smoke, and he was. He came in with a bag, and I knew, I was like, yeah, this guy's got something in there, So he busts out this little drawstring bag, and he starts unloading the goodies. This guy brought over some wax, and that's when I got excited, boys. Now, at this point in my life, I was already used to smoking dispensary-grade concentrates, Granted, it wasn't like live rosin 24/7, but, at this point, the recreational market had just gotten legalized in Illinois. And even before that, I had a lot of friends who had medical cards, so we had been going to the dispensary and smoking some pretty okay dabs for a while. I would say, the quality of what I was smoking at this point in my life was, pretty okay, but it definitely wasn't the finest of the finest. And the flower I had on me on this particular day was very mid. But concentrate-wise, I was somewhat accustomed to smoking some pretty okay stuff. This guy busted out the good old-fashioned wax paper, and sandwiched in between the wax paper was some absolutely unbelievably disgusting shatter. Now, he busted out the paper, and he put it on the table at first, and as I'm looking at it, I just know I'm in for a trip. You could see the color of it through the paper, and it was dark, brother. It was bad. I don't know what the deal was, but for some reason, almost everybody that I met when I lived in this new town was smoking the absolute worst shit ever. I mean, it was definitely not a nice area, but there were nice sides of town, so I don't know why I couldn't run into some of the people smoking the nicer rosin. I kept running into the people who were smoking the shatter that fucking Billy Bob made in his shed like 3 years ago, and they've just had it in the fridge ever since. Now, once he busted out his concentrate, I felt that it it was appropriate for me to bust out some of my shit as well. So I pulled out my wraps, I went upstairs and I grabbed them from my room, and I pulled out my wraps and my little bit of weed, and I started rolling us up a blunt. Now, the other girl, not Tina, the girl that I matched with, but the other girl there, who we're just going to label her as girl there. I don't think we need to give her a name. She offered to also roll a blunt. So I was like, yo, hell yeah, go for it. I passed her a little bit of weed, passed her a wrap, and her and I started rolling up together. Now, the way everyone was seated on the couch, right? So Tina's next to me, and then there's the other girl, and then there's Ronald. Now, Ronald was sitting there, and he was like very close to the other chick. So I'm not sure if they were boyfriend and girlfriend or what it was, but it became very clear very quickly that they were an item at this house, right? Like, it was them two, So I'm like, okay, so, I mean, this guy's not trying to fuck my bitch. We're good, So I start rolling up, she starts rolling up, everything's good. Now, Ronald also busts out a rig and a torch, and he's got his little setup, and I look over at the rig once it's all set up, and oh my god. Listen, ladies and gents, okay? I've hit some dirty pieces in my life. I know what it's like. I used to just never clean my pieces. I thought switching the water was cleaning the piece. But at this point in my life, I had moved beyond that, okay? That was something that I only really found acceptable in high school. And this guy pulls out his rig with his banger, and his banger is absolutely caked. I mean incinerated, dude. There is not, you can't even tell what material is under this banger. This could have been titanium, this could have been quartz, this could have been made out of solid gold. I couldn't tell you because it was so caked in fucking goop from the leftover layers of 3,000 years of dabs at 9,000 degrees off this banger. It looked like a fresh volcano explosion had landed upon this banger. It was absolutely incinerated. But at the same time, the way that I rationalized it in my head is I said, you know what? A shitty dab is better than no dab. And I wish that that was true, but unfortunately, it was not true on this fateful day. However, at the time, that's what was going through my mind. So, we finish rolling up these blunts, and we spark them up in my living room. They're like, oh, you could smoke in here? Like, I figured we had to go outside. I'm like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. My landlord's cool. They loved that. They were like, damn, like, this is the spot, bro. Like, we're going to have to come through more. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, yeah, come through more. I'm sitting there thinking to myself like, damn, I just made some good friends. Like, got some new people to smoke with. Maybe I'll introduce this guy to isopropyl alcohol at some point. But otherwise, solid group of people here. I was pretty happy. So as we're smoking these blunts, Ronald starts heating up his banger, and he drops a dab for himself, and this man just goes red hot, bro. There is no, waiting a few seconds, no. This guy just incinerated his banger and just drops it immediately. Just gone, bro. He has the dab prepared before he even heats the banger, and it's just the moment the torch is off, it's go time for this dude. So he drops a dab that, it looked fairly sizable. It looked like a good dab. He blows out some fat clouds, and he takes that shit. And he coughs once or twice. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, maybe it's some decent concentrate. Maybe the color is throwing me off. I mean, I just watched this guy take an 800-degree dab of it, and he seems to be perfectly fine. So after that, he passes the rig over to his girl, I don't know if it was actually his girl, but we're just going to call her his girl. So he passes the rig over to his girl, and she takes a dab next. Now, I noticed that there was no cleaning in between the dabs here, but you know what? It didn't look like there ever had been, so no big deal. So we're chilling out. She takes the dab. And next up, he offers one to me. He skips over the other girl that he'd known for longer than me. And he offers one to me. He's like, yo, you want a dab? And I'm like, yeah, for sure, bro. I appreciate it. So, I grab the rig and he's heating it up for me. And we're talking a little bit about concentrate. And I'm like, oh, So what strain is this? What do you normally get? And he tells me, he says the forbidden words. He's like, oh, I think it's some OG, bro. I should have declined the dab then and there, okay? If you ever ask someone the strain of what they're smoking and they go like, oh, I don't know, I think it's some OG, bro. Hey, that shit is dangerous, okay? Radioactive, all right? Watch out. But either way, he heats me up a dab of it, and he hands me the tool after he's done heating the dab, and I let it cool down for a couple seconds. I wasn't going like him. I let it cool down. So I dropped my dab after waiting maybe like 5 to 10 seconds. I'd say probably 10 seconds after I didn't really know how to gauge this banger. I mean, I didn't know where the temp was going to be at. It was so caked in goop, I don't know if it made it retain heat more or lose it quicker. I don't know. So either way, I waited maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and I dropped my dab, and oh Lord, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you see, I called it shatter earlier in the video, but I also don't know if shatter is the right way to describe it because it had this really weird effect. I don't know if it's because the tool was maybe still hot from dropping the last dab, but when he scraped it and put it on the tool, the texture of this concentrate was way different than when it was on the paper. Maybe it had just melted down a little bit. I don't know. But this shit was thick, and it was goopy, and it was dark. And I dropped this dab into my banger, and I see these bubbles rising up, and I'm like, oh my God, bro, it's foaming like it has rabies, dude. Like, this is fucked. And I inhale my dab, and listen, I was expecting a fairly rough dab, but I was not expecting this. It had this awful taste that, like, it did not taste like normal concentrate. There was no weed or terpene flavor to be had there. It just straight up tasted like chemicals. Whatever process was used to create this concentrate, they fucked it up somewhere along the way because this shit tasted awful. It tasted like gasoline. And I inhale and I immediately start coughing a fucking lung up, dude. I start coughing. I'm hacking my guts out, dude. I'm sitting here thinking, yo, like, my actual lung's gonna pop out in a couple seconds here, bro. It was violent. I felt my organs wiggling. And I'm coughing, and this dude makes a little comment. He's like, oh, like, I guess you couldn't handle it. Now, listen. This comment pissed me off, all right? More so because he didn't just leave it there. He was like, oh, you know, like, I guess he couldn't handle it. And then the girl that was sitting next to him, his girl, she was like, oh, yeah, like, you do smoke a lot. Maybe you should have gave him a smaller one. This guy's going to sit here and lil bro me in front of the hose. Not on my watch, bud. You don't know who you're talking to, all right? So I was a little pissed, you know. I'm sitting there coughing a lung up, and I'm like, dude, this guy's sitting there doing that shit. Like, we both know damn well if we were just sitting together, this man would have been like, yo, you good, man? But no, all right? Because the women are around, now it's all like, hey, I guess he couldn't handle it, bro. Hey, it's like those dudes who only bring up that you owe them money when the hoes are around, you know? You could owe your homie $20 for like 5 years. He'll never say a word about it until you're with some girls. You're sitting down, he's like, yo, bro, hey, you got that 20, by the way? Listen, I hate these kind of people. So I say to him, I'm you know, after I kind of collect myself and finish coughing, I'm like, no, man, it's just kind of some really rough shit. And he didn't take very kindly to that comment. And he's like, oh, bro, like, you don't got to insult my shit just because you can't handle it. And at that point, all bets were off. I was like, yo, I'm about 5 seconds away from kicking this guy and his friends the fuck out of my house, dude. Like, who are you talking to, bro? All right? But no, that's not where I took it. I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that, bro. And I said to him, I was like, give me a fat ass dab of that shit then, bro. Like, I bet I could clear it better than you can. He's like, yeah, okay, bro. Like, whatever. Like, what do you want to do? And I told him, I'm like, yo, let's do a fucking 1 gram dab, dude. Like, I guarantee I can take it fatter than you. Like, I 100% promise you I will rip this shit. And he's sitting there and he's like, well, don't waste my shit, bro. Like, I'll give it to you, but, like, I'm probably going to have to end up finishing most of it. Holy shit, dude. This guy was insufferable, okay? Listen, I'm telling you right now, I smoke a lot of weed. I smoke a lot of good weed, all right? I don't care what someone else can handle. Neither should you. That doesn't matter. The only time that I care about what someone else is smoking is when they have some garbage and they go around advertising it as fire, or they're trying to tell you that their shit is better. That's when I care. Otherwise, Who gives a fuck if someone coughs more than someone else? That means absolutely nothing. So I'm pissed at this point. I'm like, yo, this man's testing me in front of the women. This is not gonna fly in my household, bro. Okay? We can't go back to smoke at your house because you still live with your mom, all right? So I don't want to hear about it. So now all bets are off. We're prepping this dab, and I tell him, I'm like, yo, I'll pay you for it, bro. Like, how much? He tells me, he tries to tell me that if we're doing a gram dab, I owe him $50. And I say to him straight up, I'm like, bro, I'm not that stupid, dude. Like, I'm not paying $50 for a gram of your shit when we're both going to end up sharing the dab, you know? Like, that's not happening. Two, that resin, pardon me, it was definitely not rosin, is 100% not worth $50 a gram. Maybe $50 an ounce, my brother. But I said to him, I was just like, no fucking way, bro. No fucking way. I'll give you like half of that, dude. I'm not paying you $50 for that. So we argued about it a little bit, and then he was like, fine, we'll split it. Just throw me like $20. So I threw him a 20. We're off to the races. This guy's sitting there. He's telling me that I can't smoke as much as him. He's trying to tax me in my own house. He's being very disrespectful. So now I have got my inner power summoned, okay? I've got my inner rage summoned, okay? And I'm like, yo, I'm going to rip a crazy fucking dab in front of this guy. I'm going to go ape shit. So I went upstairs, and at the time, I still had my Adderall prescription. So I grabbed one of my Addies, and I crushed it up as fast as I fucking could while I was in my upstairs bathroom and just railed that shit. I was like, I need some energy, bro. Like, this is the real deal right here, boys. I need some fucking energy. So I crushed out my Addy and railed that shit, and I came back downstairs feeling like $1,000,000, just ready to rumble. He starts heating up the banger, and he passes the wax paper over to me with the wax on it, and I didn't actually know how much was on here, because it was definitely more than a gram. I mean, we'd already taken a couple dabs, and we barely made a dent in it. I would guesstimate that this was probably like maybe an eighth on the wax paper, I would say. Maybe 4 grams, but it was a really generous amount. So I wasn't really sure how to go about actually grabbing a gram. So I just kind of eyeballed it with him. I was like, yo, like, I was scraping and I was like, yo, how's this look? And I made a little snake out of it. You see? This shit was awful. The snake was pitch black. If you have a real nice dab snake, it's going to be a beautiful bright color. This looked like I took a shit and it got stuck on my dab tool. Now, I can't say for certain if this snake was over a gram or under a gram, but, I've taken quite a few 1 gram dabs in my day, and I'll tell you that this was a very generous looking one. I would estimate that this was probably like a 1.2. This thing was big, dude. We definitely weren't going to undershoot it because we were trying to big dick each other in my living room in front of the hose, okay? So this was a big occurrence. He heats up his absolutely charred banger, and I made a little comment. I was like, hey, like, you should clean the banger next time, bro. And he didn't like that very much. He just kind of said, he was like, yeah, it is a little dirty, like I probably should clean it. And that was when I realized, I was like, okay, like, at least he has some self-awareness here, He realizes that his equipment's not looking too good, So he's heating up this banger. I've got the Adderall pumping through my veins. He heats it and he passes it to me first for Mondays. So I go all in on this shit. Normally, when you're taking a gram dab, the strategy is you want to just heat the fuck out of your banger and then just slowly drop the snake on. Like you push it in, then you pull it back out. You don't really want to drop a huge chunk of it at once because then your banger is just going to be soup, right? You have to be kind of strategic with it. I threw all of that knowledge out the window, and I just slapped as much of it in the banger as I could. This guy didn't have any, like, XL banger or anything, so it was, like, flooding, bro. I would say, probably 3/4 of the snake in there before I pulled it back out, and there was still a very good amount left on the banger, and I am ripping this shit. See, here's the key when you're taking a 1 gram or whatever, like, giant-sized dab. The key is you got to go at it fast because the moment you let it hit you, the moment you let it really hit your lungs and that tingle gets you, it's fucking over with. You just gotta go for it, bro. You gotta drop it, and you gotta inhale as much as you can on that first go, because all the hits after that are going to be extremely rough and not very pleasant. So you've really got to go for it. And I had the Addy pumping through me, right? I could barely taste this absolute dookie gasoline fucking Pookie pack because I had so much Adderall dripping down the back of my throat, which I think was a saving grace for this dab. But I'm ripping this shit. I'm going ape shit. And I just inhale for as long as I can. And finally, I put the rig down and I pass it over to Ronald. And I let out a big boy cloud. I did not hold shit in my lungs because I wasn't going to hold it and make him go like, oh, that's a tiny cloud. No, you know what? Fuck you, Ronald. We're letting out the biggest cloud possible. So I just let it rip, dude. And I did very, very good. Honestly, out of all the 1 gram dabs that I've done in my life, I would say that this was one of my strongest performances. I really showed out on this day. So I rip this dab and I pass it over to him, and I am fighting for my fucking life to try not to cough. I couldn't give him the satisfaction. I was like, yo, I can't cough, bro. So I'm holding it in. You know when you're trying to hold in a cough or a sneeze and you're letting out those little sounds, those little like, you know? I'm sitting there and I'm sweating. My face is red. I'm coughing like through my nose a little bit. I'm just trying to hold it in as hard as I can. I'm trying to take really deep breaths, you know, as hard as I can. And it's just, it's not happening, bro. I explode. I let it out coughing. But luckily, to my surprise here, because I thought this guy was the ultimate smoker. I thought he could never cough, according to him. He started coughing as well once he exhaled his first hit. So that made me feel a little better. And I kind of waved for him to pass me the piece back. I was like, hey, bro, like, give me that shit. You know, like fucking, hey, throw me that shit. So he passes it back to me. And I hit it again, and I'm taking a rip, you know, and I'm once again just trying to do as much as I can because there was some soup in this banger. So as I'm hitting it, he reheats it, which was an awful idea because then the soup just completely exploded. He heated it for so long that the goddamn dookie soup in the banger started crackling. A little snap, crackle, pop, if you will. So I finish hitting this dab. We kind of pass it back and forth a little bit more, and I finish it up. And oh my God, I don't know if high is really the right word for it. I more so felt repulsed. I was starting to feel ill. I had this just cold sweat going where I felt really hot, but then really cold, and I was all sweaty, and I couldn't stop coughing. I'm sitting there, and I'm not really feeling faded, but my body just felt wrong, dude. I was tingling a little bit, almost like I had lost circulation to the entirety of my body. I'm sitting there, and I'm like, fuck, that was an awful experience. That was terrible. So I get up and I go grab myself a water, and I come back, and I brought some waters with me, being the gentleman that I am for the ladies. I brought some waters for everybody, including Ronald, because you know what? I'm just a good guy like that. But I had realized at this point that I had spent more time arguing with Ronald than I had talking to Tina. And me and Tina weren't actually getting along very well. We had barely said anything to each other like the entire time. So I realized at this point that it was about time to wrap it up. And I didn't spend very much time thinking of a good excuse. I just told him, I was like, hey, I gotta go to work soon. Like, you guys probably gotta head out. I didn't even think about it. I just immediately spat that shit out within like 5 minutes of finishing the dab. I was like, you know what? I proved my point. Now get these people the fuck out of my house. And that's what they did. They got up and, you know, I said goodbye to Tina, and I shit you not, I think Tina knew that it didn't go very well because she never hit me up and I never hit her up after this night. It was one of those things where like we both just kind of knew like, yeah, let's never speak again, you know? So either way, there's my story on hitting a gram dab of some of the worst shit I've ever smoked in my life. I would describe how the high was, but there wasn't really much of a high. There was more of an illness that came with it. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, y'all, and Happy New Year's.